Judge Alan Prescott had always been a man of control. His courtroom in Tampa, Florida was his kingdom, and he ruled it with an iron fist. Decades on the bench had hardened him, leaving no room for sentimentality or leniency. Lawyers who entered his domain knew better than to challenge his authority. His reputation was built on unwavering discipline and unyielding adherence to order. Yet for all his experience, for all his power, Prescott never anticipated that a simple gold cross would be the thing to shake his throne. Pam Bondi strode into the courthouse, her heels clicking against the polished marble floor. Confidence radiated from her as she adjusted the lapel of her blazer and tightened her grip on the leather briefcase in her hand. She had argued more cases than she could count, dismantled opposing arguments with surgical precision, and commanded courtrooms with the ease of a seasoned litigator. Today's hearing was supposed to be routine, another business dispute that required little more than a firm voice and a well-prepared case. But as she approached the defendant's table, she felt something shift in the air. Judge Prescott's gaze locked onto her, not her face, not her expression, but just below her collarbone, where a delicate gold cross rested against the fabric of her blouse. His expression darkened, his lips pressed into a hard line. A stillness settled over the room, a brief but palpable silence before Prescott cleared his throat, his voice sharp and cutting. "Miss Bondi, I must remind you that religious symbols have no place in my courtroom." Pam met his stare without hesitation, her posture unwavering. "Your Honor," she replied, her voice steady, measured. "This cross is no different than a wedding ring or a locket with a family photo." "It's a personal expression, not a disruption." Prescott's jaw tightened. "That's not how I see it. Either remove it, or I'll have to issue a fine for disregarding courtroom neutrality." A ripple of murmurs spread through the spectators. The bailiff shifted uneasily. The court clerk glanced between the judge and Pam, sensing the weight of the moment. This wasn't just about a cross. It was about power, about control. And Pam Bondi had no intention of surrendering hers. She didn't. Reach for the necklace. Instead, she folded her hands over her briefcase, her voice calm but firm. "Your Honor, before we proceed, I'd like to address this issue formally. I will be filing an objection and would like my argument stated on the record." Prescott's nostrils flared, his irritation evident. "Miss Bondi, this hearing is about a business dispute, not your personal grievances. And I'm well aware that the First Amendment doesn't take a recess for personal opinions," she countered smoothly. The room tensed. Prescott's fingers tapped against the armrest of his chair, a telltale sign of his frustration. But Pam was already reaching into her briefcase. She withdrew a single sheet of paper, placing it deliberately on the table before her. "You're fining me for wearing a cross," she continued, her voice cutting through the tension. "Let's break that down legally, shall we?" Prescott exhaled sharply, rubbing his temples. "This is not a religious debate, Miss Bondi." Pam tilted her head slightly, eyes locked onto his. "Then why did you make it one?" A hushed gasp echoed through the courtroom. Even the court reporter, trained to remain impartial, hesitated for a fraction of a second before continuing to type. Pam tapped the paper in front of her. "Tinker vs. Des Moines, 1969. The Supreme Court ruled that individuals do not shed their constitutional rights when they enter a government institution, whether that's a school or a courtroom." She let her words sink in before continuing. "West Virginia State Board of Education versus Barnett, 1943. The ruling established that compelling individuals to remove or hide symbols of personal belief is a violation of their First Amendment rights." Prescott's fingers tightened around the gavel, his knuckles white. He was cornered, and he knew it. The weight of precedent loomed over him, the law itself standing in opposition to his decree. "Your Honor," Pam said, her voice unwavering. "Would you like me to keep going, or would you prefer to reconsider that fine?" For a long moment, Prescott remained silent. Then, with a barely contained sigh, he muttered, "Mark the fine as pending review." Pam smiled, not a triumphant smile, but a knowing one. Much appreciated, Your Honor. But this wasn't over, not by a long shot. By the next morning, the story had spread like wildfire. News outlets ran the headline, "Florida Judge Attempts to Fine Attorney for Wearing a Cross, Backs Down After Constitutional Challenge." Social media erupted, with legal analysts and civil rights advocates weighing in. The Florida Judicial Review Board announced they would be launching an investigation into Prescott's conduct. Pam's phone buzzed relentlessly. Colleagues, journalists, even old classmates reached out to commend her stand. But she wasn't interested in accolades. She had a bigger goal in mind. Prescott, however, refused to go down quietly. Within days, a formal complaint landed on Pam's desk, accusing her of disrupting courtroom proceedings and challenging judicial authority inappropriately. Lauren, her assistant, placed the document on her desk with a tight-lipped expression. "He's trying to flip the narrative, make you look like the problem." Pam skimmed the complaint, shaking her head with a faint smirk. "He's scared. That's why he's lashing out." She knew what had to be done. If Prescott wanted to play dirty, she'd play smarter. She picked up her phone and dialed Lisa Reynolds, a journalist known for exposing judicial overreach. Within hours, the story had gone national. Legal experts dissected Prescott's reasoning, condemning his actions as an abuse of power. The Judicial Review Board intensified their probe, forcing Prescott into an uncomfortable position. Eventually, he had no choice but to issue a statement. "I have always upheld the integrity of this courtroom," Prescott said stiffly during a press conference. "The actions taken were in the interest of maintaining neutrality. However, I respect the judicial review process and will cooperate fully." Pam watched the clip from her office, sipping her coffee. She didn't gloat. She didn't need to. The message had been sent. The fallout extended beyond Prescott. Pam's stand ignited a national conversation about judicial overreach and constitutional rights. Attorneys across the country shared their own experiences with overbearing judges, and legal organizations began drafting policies to prevent similar incidents. Pam knew this wasn't just about her. It was about every person who had ever walked into a courtroom wondering if their rights would be honored. It was about ensuring that no one else would have to fight this battle alone. As she leaned back in her chair, the gold cross still resting against her blouse, she allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. She had won, not just for herself, but for everyone who believed in standing up for what was right. And she had sent a clear message. No one, not even a judge, was above the Constitution. If you believe in standing up for your rights, make sure your voice is heard. Like, comment, and subscribe for more real stories that matter.